It will never get to us.
No, I don't.
It should. Some people said
No,
I'm
that,
sure it's
because
eligible, so I
if
asked
they
Scott,
grant them the right to build it, they don't need our,
verify that.
they don't need our
Which
tax
he told
abatement.
me.
I don't
No.
think, I don't think.
I mean,
It's
$5 million over 10 years when they make $300 million a day
sorry.
in profit.
I spread out, Mary. Well, I don't
got a
think the commissioners
reimbursement.
were that thrilled with it. I talked to one of the commissioners and that person wasn't.
But Bill did say that he would get the flavor of the council before he would ever agree to something, and, because we, you know, I mean, but we can't stop him.
Oh, no.
We can't stop somebody like that with tax abatement. That's-
But you know what? So far, we've seen if they don't get that tax abatement, they don't want
That's
This
the-
could be different though,
That's-
because the
that's-
sales and use tax that the state, I don't know what that equals, but they
Yeah, but-
already get from the state.
Right, no,
breaks.
Yes.
they do $300 million of profit a day, and we were gonna give them $5 million over 10 years. I mean, that's not even worth mentioning.
Well, I was gonna say they're
$1
billion
Into the
Yeah,
second.
over 10.
$300 million a day in
I-
profit,
Oh, a
not in
day.
gross,
Oh, a day.
just
I
in
looked at
profit.
years, and in 10 years, we were only gonna get an amount of money that some of these buildings pay
No,
in 1 year.
I know, yeah, no, it
2 or
was
3 million, and
no
they pay
benefit,
that in 1 year.
absolutely no benefit to the county.
But Robin, if that building is a $500 million building,
But still-
calculation.
Yeah,
You know what,
still
though?
for 10 years, it wasn't
Pardon
ever.
me?
There's
for
better
10
projects.
years, we weren't gonna get
They're not adding on.
There's
500,000
there's better projects
from the
out there.
building.
Robin, they weren't building.
Get me something I can
Putting
get
equipment in
behind.
a
I think
vacant
that
area.
was a minimum.
There's no
You know what I
increased
mean?
AV on that.
Listen,
Okay, it's 8:30.
Well,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll drive you guys along eventually. You'll learn how to say the pledge of allegiance.
Janine sat there and did that for 2 years, and I still didn't do it.
I know. There's no comma.
Yeah. Right, good morning, everyone.
good morning.
Glasses, and then we'll start.
Chair up higher. Somebody
They
lowered
haven't
it.
picked them up yet.
Somebody lowered it. I look like a regular person.
Nicole, looks like you're up first.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, in front of you, I have all of the CF1s that have been submitted since Friday. I'm just going to go over the ones that I kind of felt like that needs attention. So if we want to look at number 4, it's Inland LLC. The CF1 states they have 0 employees, and there have been no employees for the past 2 years. This is their 3rd year of abatement. The next one, number 5, same thing. CF1 states 0 employees, and there have been no employees for the past year. This is their 2nd year.
Could I ask a question at
Sure.
this point? I noticed on here there were some vacant buildings and so forth. Do you know from doing all of this how many vacant buildings we actually have?
I do not. I will know more
That's
once
not
I get
really
all the
your job.
CF1s in. I mean, the only one I'm going to know is by employee count. There's quite a few on this list that I
Yeah, and if
have,
there's a 0 employee.
yeah. I can come back with that information once I have all the CF1s if you want.
What was the name on the first one that you ran over?
Inland, I guess that's how you say it. It's
Number
number
3.
4.
Number 4.
Yep.
Number
3 was
4.
okay,
I'm
I
sorry.
So pretty much number 4 and number 5 have had no employees. And then I'm going to go to number 10, which is the second page. 70 Connect 2. They, again, state no employees. They did not have any employees last year. I went back through. So their very first year was 22 paid 23. They had no employees. And you guys did call them up to see what was going on. And I think they still had it for rent. 23 paid 24. They had 22 employees. And then 24 paid 25, they had none. And again, this year, they don't have any. I would recommend if you could deny that CF1, as the CF1 was actually not signed and they didn't have the correct dates at the top. It should say 25 paid 26 and it doesn't have those dates.
That's number 10.
Number 10.
So if they don't have any employees, does that mean that the building's empty? Nobody's,
I'm assuming so.
Are these all
We probably need to
leases?
bring 'em
There
in
are
and
none-
find
These
out.
3 that you just went over are not
Yeah, all of
owner-occupied?
them, they were the
we requested it
house
before.
built to suit warehouses. All of these have been built to suit warehouse.
Yeah, so the personal property filing would not be the building owner, it would be the tenant. So just keep that in mind, that if the building tenant is not there to have employees and the owner just is putting it up for lease, I think it's something to think about as to how long we're willing to let that stand, and then when does it become an issue?
Well, particularly 70 Connect
Shouldn't we
4.
bring these people in and talk to them and find out what's going on?
Either that or a letter, whatever you.
Yeah, because what you can do is on the CF1, you have where you can mark property owner is not in substantial compliance, and then we can set a hearing date for them to come back in, and then they can come in and explain what is going on.
Would you guys rather talk to them in person, or would you rather, or is a letter enough to have them follow up by a certain date?
I think we could start with a letter and then and then if we're not satisfied with that, we could call them in.
Yeah, it's,
So the CF1s, you have 45 days to grant them compliancy, and if you don't make any ruling on that, it's an automatic compliant. So you, to me, the way that I understand this CF1 is there should be some sort of decision made today. Either they're in compliance or they're not, and then request them to come in to talk.
How long, so do we have 45 days from,
From the time of submission.
so a letter and then have them come might be a little too slow.
Correct. Yes.
I think we can probably make them non-compliant pending a review of their information that we've requested. Something like that?
Yeah. I mean, those were, they didn't say they were gonna have 30 employees making $20 an hour. They said they were gonna have $9.5 million of local salary, and it's 0, so quite the disparity.
Yeah.
What about number 14?
Number 14. Yeah, I mean, I did not go back far. I didn't go back to previous years, but all I had was that last year they had 45 employees and this year they have 6. So, I mean, last year they were in compliance because their SB1 stated 25 employees, but this year is down to 6. So I don't know, what you guys,
They could have advanced their AI technology, or they could have lost a tenant. We don't know.
yeah.
That GDI?
That is GDI. That was the
Yes,
GDI
GDI.
number 1.
They have other issues too.
But mainly the ones that I highlighted and had issues on was number 4, number 5, 10, 11, and 14. Those are the ones that I highlighted as no employees, or they dropped in employees per last year or per their SB1.
And then the last one, number 16, Walmart. they
Yeah,
have not-
Walmart, that's the personal property. So I spoke with Michelle in the assessor's office to see if they had filed their business personal property filing. At the time, which was Monday when I called her, they had not filed anything, but I think she said the deadline was the 15th for
is,
that.
yeah,
So, there's probably a lot of paperwork she's going through. But she said that you could approve the CF1, and if there's any issues with their filing, she can deny it and send back the information to them.
All right. So number 4, number 5, number 10, number 14,
Number 11 as well, 10,
number
11,
11.
and 14.
11. We need a motion to
Yeah.
move forward with this.
You had that motion to
Say they're not in
say
compliance.
they're not in compliance.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a
Somebody-
motion to deem non-compliant, the projects listed in number 4, 5, 10, 11, and 14.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay. Do you mind just coming up and seeing me to sign these?
Yep, I'll do
Afterwards?
that.
Okay, thank you.
I guess we do have one. Approve application, something to do with their waiver of noncompliance?
Oh, I'm sorry, do we need to make a separate motion to approve, or did that approve everything else?
Well, I was
The way
wondering-
I worded that, I don't think
Yeah,
that
I'm-
left
yeah.
everything else approved.
Oh, you didn't, I'm sorry.
So I'll make another motion to deem compliant everyone on the list with the exception of numbers 4, 5, 10, 11, and 14.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Tammy was the
Motion
second.
passes.
That's good, Keely, I missed it too.
Yeah, I
We
guess
didn't
I,
approve the others, we just
I knew what the
canceled them.
motion
Well, I
was
was
supposed to
sitting
be
here
about, but I
wondering.
didn't listen.
Maybe
You
I
didn't catch
spaced
that
it.
either.
Maybe she said
It
it.
was it was all in my verbiage.
I'm looking like to the
Okay,
attorney,
let's
he's not
start
here,
now
so
with True Fabrications.
I'll have 2 jobs here.
Hi, good morning. My name is Alexis Souter. I'm a director with KSM Location Advisors. We are a site selector and in this case, a property tax consultant. We were actually instrumental in helping True Fabrications get the abatement approved on this property. But we had a little hiccup here and it worked very well with Nicole, so I'd like to give some recognition there. This is actually with regards to the 24 pay 25 filing. Which is the second year of a 10-year abatement. First year went off without a hitch. Our role as it relates to how we complete these forms and then give these to True to file, we get everything prepared, we send them a package, and then we have to say, True, you need to get a copy to the auditor and to the assessor. First year went off without a hitch. This year, again, 24 pay 25. Not really sure where things went wrong. We've got everything to them timely. That would have been April 17th of 2024. My gut is that they may have sent everything. They just kind of took the whole packet, probably sent it all to the assessor, not to the auditor. So things just got missed in that regard. As it relates to 25, pay 26, which is, kind of what you guys are approving now. Everything's been filed. There was just kind of an administrative oversight, quite candidly, for that 24, pay 25 year. So I think you've got the CF1 as most recently signed, hopefully in front of you. But here to answer any questions, jobs have been created, investment has been
I
made.
never received anything, so there's nothing in your packets.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Nicole, okay, can you just speak real quickly about, everything's up to date now
everything
and
okay?
we're ready to move
So
forward?
are they a year late?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. I usually vote no if they're just a day late. Because, you have malpractice, because, I've done it as an attorney. You have malpractice insurance to cover you to make that mistake. That's a massive mistake. That's not,
So I did. So what happens is in the June meeting, I let you guys know that I had not received a CF1 and I mailed a letter out to them in June to let them know they were non-compliant.
year.
Of last year. And I never received anything. Nobody called me, nobody emailed me, nothing. Until just recently, until April 17th of this year is when they let me know, oh, we didn't realize we didn't file. So they are, per se, on their employees, they are compliant. Their employee count is 106 employees versus their SB1 said 93. So they're in compliancy with that. And also they're over on their salaries as well. They have 3.7 million in salaries versus their SB1 was 2.9. So in respect to that, they are in compliance, except for them turning it in a
So
year
this is
late.
24, pay 25 that you're
Correct.
talking about. So how did the tax bill go out for 24, 25? Still recognizing the abatement?
No.
No,
Oh,
so
it's
it
been a
went
full
out.
amount.
That's where we don't catch,
what it
so
costs.
yes,
Yes.
Nicole would have sent notice to True,
Yeah.
right? And we just, we're the ones that help them complete these forms. So we just didn't, until we validate their tax bill for them, we wouldn't have caught it. And so as soon as we, went to go validate, the pay 25 tax bill. So there's no deduction on it. They've not taken advantage of it. We're just here to get a waiver of noncompliance with your approval.
Anybody questions, comments?
So do we have to move to accept the new one?
That's what you want.
Okay, but they've had their employees all along. They haven't lost to come back or anything like that.
Correct.
What year of abatement is that in?
24, pay 25.
Or I'm sorry, is it
Last
a
year.
10-year abatement?
It's 10 years, second year.
It's only the second year.
Yeah.
I mean, and so they would still owe without abatement for last year and be asking to reinstate abatement going forward, or?
The way the law reads is that you can't recover from a year lost. It's just a year lost. So let's say we're looking at 30-year abatements today on them. They just didn't get an abatement in
24, pay
24,
25.
pay 25. You don't push that abatement a year longer because of that. They just lose it. It's the way the law reads.
Well, I move that we accept the new CF1 and let them continue. And, yeah, because what you're saying is they can't recover what they've lost, but it, you know,
Well, I
they've
think
done.
if you grant the waiver of noncompliance, you are essentially reinstating what they've lost, right? Because it's paid 25, it hasn't been paid yet.
It hasn't been paid yet.
Last year.
Yeah, they've
So
done
the
what they've.
question is, do you want
except
to let
for
it
the
go for
paperwork, is
last
what you're
year and let them keep the abatement last year? Or do you want to make them pay the full bore for 24, pay 25, and then if they're compliant next year,
Yeah.
revisit it?
Is, would the tax bill then have, did the tax bill get paid on time?
They did, yes.
Okay, so
yeah.
there's no penalty
Nope,
involved with the
nope.
bill itself?
Yeah, we advise them to go ahead
I
and pay
would
that.
just credit the fall installment. If you grant compliance
That was
today.
my question.
I would correct the fall installment.
Oh, okay.
Well, it's a lack of paperwork issue,
Yeah.
not a lack of
Meeting standard.
meeting requirements
Yeah.
and doing what we agreed to.
And so they would be paying extra on this spring installment and not be getting a waiver on the first half of the year. The first payment of this year, they wouldn't get a
Can we do
discount.
that, Mary? I'm not sure.
Oh, they technically would.
Give it to
I
them
mean,
in the fall.
Yeah, I would
They get a
credit
full-
their fall
I think
installment,
that's a good
but
technical
it would be for
question.
the spring
Yeah.
too.
Oh, it would include
It
both.
would be both, but I would credit
Taxes for a long time.
I see.
Paid the full amount.
Robin,
So we wouldn't
Robin's
pay
a
more.
previous
Use their money.
auditor and I'm a previous assessor, and what we're discussing is that you can't waive one installment, say spring, and then they'll owe in the fall. A tax bill is a lump.
She just said that. She said she would credit them back in the fall.
Okay, because,
And-
yeah, it
yeah.
has to,
I misunderstood it.
yeah, they can't split a tax bill like that.
Yeah, it would be credited. I would have credited both spring and fall towards the fall.
The portion that, okay, gotcha. All right, so do we have a motion?
I make the motion.
Second.
Mary, do you have what you need? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Thank you very much appreciated.
Okay, thank you.
And,
All right. Randy, did you want something?
doing it.
We've got about 15 minutes before we start a public hearing. I thought if you, I didn't see your name on the agenda, but if you're here, you maybe wanted something?
yeah.
Because they're doing what they're supposed to.
Well, I came to listen, but also came maybe for a sidebar at some point, so
That doesn't surprise me.
there's a lot of stuff going on,
Yeah?
as I was hearing. So one of the, definitely two of the big buildings are going to get filled up here soon. The 805 that sits at the northwest corner of 300 North and 7 West, that one's currently being outfitted for a tenant. Peterson's been in there working. I had a call yesterday.
At the whole building, or
Yes,
they're gonna, the tenant will take the whole building?
yes. Had a site visit about a week and a half ago for distribution, and it's down to one of two buildings in Mount Comfort or one building over in Columbus, Ohio. And the site selector is from Indiana, and he said if he had to say, it'd probably lean our way. So don't have definition on that yet, but that looks good, and that would be like a 500,000 square foot building. And then I had a call yesterday about something that we'll have to talk about offline at some point, but would fill up one of the 1 million square foot buildings.
Say that again?
Fill up one of the 1 million square foot buildings?
Yes.
Yours are popping for some.
I got to talk to you sometime.
We got a new building going up at the southeast corner of 3 North and 5 West? 3 North and
4 West.
4 West.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know if they have a tenant or?
Yeah, that's a build-to-suit.
Good.
They, Ambrose won that about a year ago, maybe last summer.
If you got I don't need the list, but when people call you, especially for warehousing, we approved warehousing things that buildings haven't been built yet, like 3 buildings and they've only built 1. You've got a list of those people that when you call, you say, hey, these people still have 2 buildings left to build on their property or something like that.
Well, I tell you
So-
what, the builders themselves, the brokers are really pushing for those because we have moved from spec to build-to-suit, so everything's under construction. They have won these projects. They knew that the developer community knows about these companies looking for things, and they go chase them. The other brokers chase them. So they've been coming to us and say, the only thing that's come up a little bit, which we've kind of dealt with in the application, is maybe they said they were going to build 4 million square foot buildings. Well, they chase a build-to-suit, and they need a 450.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to build something, but it doesn't look like what the preliminary approval was. But, that's that bird in the hand.
What's the, has the rent rate started to drop because of everything that's politically going on?
Just a teeny bit, actually.
Well, I'm
Well, and
surprised.
because
Interesting.
it's a mixed bag. There was an overbuild when everything was cheap and there was private equity money running flush. But now, first of all, that is picking up. Secondly, the tariff, the saber rattling has worked. I've told him in March we had 15 requests for information. I mean, that's the highest number we've ever had. We had 12 last month. And so it's very, very busy. And things will, if the calls are happening the first half of the year, the activity happens in the second half of the year.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the reasons that I've got some things, that's kind of the tone of things at this point.
I just thought maybe the lease rates were going to start dropping because we have more space available than demand.
Well, I think demand's going to skyrocket because he announced the other day, $8 trillion to be spent in the United States over the next 4 years from all of these companies and another $1 trillion from Saudi Arabia. I mean, that's got to revert to something.
It's going to flow somewhere.
It's gonna fall somewhere.
I had conversation with Matt Brower Peterson back in February, and he said that in January they had booked $18 million in tenant finishes, one of them being the building I was talking about over on 300. So things are starting to pick up. Last year, they kind of said, it's not quite this simplistic, but it borders on it. Last year, no one would do anything because of the political uncertainty. And once the election happened, they go, okay, so that's who the president's going to be and that's who the governor's going to be. Now there was some predictability and a little visibility, so it's gotten a lot busier.
Randy, one thing, I'm glad people are building to suit. I think that might make people stickier tenants for longer if they've built something to their needs, right? But just a reminder, at some point this body voted on, and this has been several years ago, because I remember Councilman Bolander was here. We voted on a number, I want to say maybe 20%, where if you were going to change the building by 20%.
I think it was 25%.
Okay, by size, up or down, you needed to come back here to get that abatement re-solidified before you assumed
Right,
it was
there's more
okay
than
on
that.
whatever you built. Are people following that?
Well, none of them have come out of the ground yet. So I don't know I don't know that we've hit that 25% number, but
Okay.
I did have that conversation a few months back.
Okay, I just want to make
Yeah,
sure,
they're-
it's been a long time since
Yeah.
it came up, and I just want to make sure it's still, if somebody said they were going to build 1 million and come back here and said they built 250, that's something that should have come through here before they built.
Right. So there were two things that I've been paying attention to lately because it is picking up. One, the build-to-suits may not match exactly what was approved. And secondly, something else that you guys did was that if it was a multi-building park, by a certain date out, they had to
7
pull
years.
the
7 years.
report, the,
Right.
because I've got one of those up right now. So an abatement that was granted in 2020,
Oh, it's getting close.
And
Haven't gotten all their
the
buildings
company
by
that
now.
I just was talking about, it's us or Columbus, Ohio, they're looking at 2 existing buildings or possibly a build-to-suit. And I called the broker yesterday. I said, well, you might want to turn the volume up on this.
Yeah.
Because if they want to build something, then, you know.
Yeah, it's still covered, but when it gets 7
But it's-
years, then you got to start the process over.
Yeah, so those kinds of things we're starting to pay attention to.
Randy, can I ask you something? I asked Nicole, do you know how many empty buildings we have? Just approximate?
I'll say 10, but it's less than that.
Out of how many?
Oh, my gosh, 40?
Yeah, I knew it was somewhere between 30 and 40.
So I just got the report, Cushman & Wakefield push out every quarter, so I just got the first quarter's numbers. I just haven't had a chance to look through it yet. You know, I'd give you that. A call that I had yesterday. And so you may remember that in March, Walmart filed for tax abatement for, new capital or equipment to go in the fulfillment center. And then we kind of just pulled that because we're in the middle of the legislature. I know they just wrapped up, but I don't know if you guys have been thinking about a policy as to how to handle business personal property tax abatement, or, because I got a call about it yesterday. They said, where are we? And I said, let's just sit on this a while because let's let the dust settle. But that's one of the things I want to know if you
We have
guys
not had a discussion since the legislature wrote out
Right.
how they want to proceed statewide. So I guess that's a conversation we probably need to have. We typically just have not really engaged with personal property abatement, period. So I don't know that will even be a point.
Well, the only time that we have was on the original Walmart facility, because that
right.
was 600 million. But they're getting ready to put in 440 million now. And so Bentonville's pushing them, and they said, well, if we do this now, we forfeit the right to ask for an incentive. It ceases to be incentive if they already done the work.
Did the state lower the floor, which will lower the personal property tax?
They took that floor out, I believe, on new filings only. And that's how that works is they fill out all the values that they have in their personal property, and then there's a percentage of adjustment that the state gives, and then it's totaled. And if that total is less than 30% of the total AV on that equipment, you still pay it 30%. So that's why I call it a 30% floor. You'll never get below it, even though the form goes down to 5% on a particular line. Once you tally the whole thing, it can't go below 30.
But at some level, I thought that 30% floor goes away.
It never goes away.
I thought that was in the new act.
Yes, the new act will, I thought it was just for new filings.
I think that's correct. I was really hoping Greg was
I'd
here
have to
today.
read it
I
again.
agree with you, it's for new filings.
Just for new filings.
Would this be a new filing?
Yeah, this would be. Yeah.
Yeah, and so they could go down to 5%.
Can like Greg or somebody get the numbers so that, because I'm not clear on how much physical dollars any abatement, whether it's 5 years, 10 years, 3 years, I'm not clear on how much dollars that means that we're debating them.
I don't know either, and Walmart doesn't know, and so that's why I said I was hoping
we
Greg
can't
would be
make
here
the
today.
decision
If we could get that
if we're gonna
kind
help
of
them any-
projection.
If we don't know what the dollar amount is.
We ought to have Greg run that number.
Right, because,
There were 2 law changes. One changed the original, so how it actually came out is still a little muddy.
Yeah.
Maybe you know, but.
Yeah,
And the other thing to remember is personal property, we do pass through all of the personal property tax.
Right, that goes
It
to.
does not go to the RDC.
yeah, and
right, it comes
I
right
can't
to the
remember
county.
exactly how many years Walmart has
Well-
been down there now.
And the schools.
Right.
So we had the ribbon cutting in 22.
Taxing units.
So they've been
Right.
there,
No, I take that back. We had ribbon cutting 23.
so they've been there 2.5, 3 years
Yeah.
thereabouts.
So what-
I'd like to ask questions about what they've done to help with the area and outside the realm of just paying their taxes. I know when they were built, there was discussion about a fire truck, but that never happened because nobody could find it in writing. And
There,
Well, and heard several nonprofits say they've tried to talk to Walmart about, supporting an event or something, and it's crickets. There's nobody on the other end of the
they've
phone.
not given the fire department down there.
The
any-
there are more things to talk about.
Right, but
Yeah.
the reason the fire department thing was a critical thing, because they just lost 1 million square feet about 40 miles from here. Walmart did. You know what I mean? They just lost a whole building. So then when they bring it over here, and we have a 2 million square foot building, which is much bigger than that one, that's why when the original, when we'd already agreed for them to come here when that fire happened, but still, that's why the fire department thing is kind of an issue right now.
So, and those two things are tied together with the personal property tax abatement request they have now. I don't know if you guys were there with the open it or not, but if you sat in there, the western quarter was just left vacant.
Right.
And that was because they didn't know if maybe they were going to move those Plainfield people over here and use that as a
Right.
distribution center. They hadn't made that decision, or if they were going to fill it up with equipment. Well, they ended up, I don't know if they actually went back to Plainfield, but somewhere around not here, they did the DC again. So they left it open. And so then a couple months ago, they said, this is really working. It's working really well. So let's finish out that. That's what the 440 for robotics is, to go in that space there.
Right, right. But as far as Walmart goes, in our eyes, one of the reasons why we have to have another vehicle is because of that facility.
Sure.
And.
There's another conversation to be had.
Okay.
One thing I will say is I'm not definitively opposed to anything. I would want to see the math. I believe the original mention of this was something like 10 years, right? And I'll just be clear, there's no way I would entertain last that long if I entertained anything at all, so.
Yeah, I think we've just got to wait for the application to come through, and then we'll see what they're going to ask for. And in the meantime, we can.
The application you guys have,
Yeah, I remember.
they just didn't move it forward.
Right.
Oh, what is the number? Do you remember?
440 million.
Pardon me?
440 million.
Well, it was my understanding if
I'll
we
have
give them
Greg
10
run
years.
the numbers, and then
Yeah,
we'll have
we
it
numbers,
based
'cause
on that.
It was my understanding at the time, which I'm probably wrong, if we give them 10 years, then there is no tax period because it's all depreciated out in zero by the time the abatement's over.
Yeah, I
Well,
think,
not according to the old law, maybe the new
well,
law,
the new law, if it removes the floor, it's zero.
maybe.
We got to start our public
I
hearing,
need
Need to
so.
see math,
Oh,
yeah.
that's actually everything I needed to talk about, although, like I said, there'll be a sidebar later today with some of you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Randy.
Thanks, Randy.
How about I have Greg run it at 5 years and 10 years?
I thought
so
he
we got
did
both.
that. I thought we had that.
He didn't have the number.
5, 7, and 10.
He didn't have the
Did we?
the exact
No,
number.
that's what we talked
Walmart
about,
hadn't
4, 5,
given him the
Okay.
gross number yet,
Okay.
I don't think. Greg didn't have.
Okay.
I'll look through my stuff if I couldn't find it. Okay, we're going to start the public hearings on additional appropriations. I'll open the public hearing for Fund
Do I hear
1001,
another
County
one?
General, transfer to Public Defender, $103,000. Is there any comments from the public? Any comments questions from the council? We're a quiet crew tonight. I guess my only question is, what's the $103,000 for?
It's on the other page.
It's 15,000
Transcripts and attorney
transcripts.
Oh,
Attorney fees are 88,000.
Fees.
That's paying the outside counsel.
That's outside
and
counsel.
Transfer.
okay, gotcha. So we have no comments. I'll close the public hearing.
I make a motion to approve Fund 1001, County General Public Defender in the amount of $103,000.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
From?
County General. We have a first and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next public hearing is an additional appropriation for Fund 1135 Cume Bridge for $100,000. Any comments from the public? Any questions from the council? No? All right, then I'll close the public hearing. And
I move we approve Fund 1135 Cume Bridge for $100,000 for bridge number 67.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Next on our list is a public hearing for additional appropriation for Fund 1207 Unsafe Building, $11,600. Is there any questions or comments from the public? Oh, any questions from the?
Which building is this?
It's the house that burned
Oh,
in
it's that-
spring, like
okay,
the
got it.
arson house, yeah.
Okay, got it. I just couldn't
Again, is
remember.
that general fund? Is that where you were going to take that from?
Well, it does not say,
It's Fund
Now, I
1207.
believe we're transferring the money
Yeah,
from
it-
the general fund.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, they
No.
have it, we
Food
just have
and
to
No,
beverage.
we're
We're appropriating
appropriating
that.
from
Yeah, we're appropriating it.
1207.
Oh, do they have that? I didn't think they
Yeah,
did.
this is appropriation from Fund 1207, the Unsafe Building Fund. So do we have a motion?
Did you close the public hearing yet?
I thought I did, but
I don't
no,
know. You
I don't
did.
either.
You did, okay,
I
then I'll
did.
make a motion to,
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Keeley, seconded by Kent, to approve the $11,600, Fund 1207. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Public hearing for additional appropriation from Fund 8891, Problem Solving Court Grant, $20,000 and $20,288. Any questions or comments from the public? Any questions from the council? I'll close the public hearing and see for a motion.
Motion to approve Fund 8891, Problem Solving Court Grant, Drug Court, $20,288.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. And our last is additional appropriation from Fund 9100, Duke Energy Foundation Grant for $1,000. I'll open the public hearing. Any comments or questions? Questions from the council? Where's the money?
It's a
coming
grant.
from, but where's it?
Grant.
It's a grant from Duke Energy for
where's
the
it-
Homeland Security.
For Homeland Security.
Yes.
Okay, that's what I was
They
trying to
swept the floor and found some coins and decided to give the
Duke
$1,000
Energy?
to Duke Energy. Yeah, that's laying on the ground over there.
Doge missed this one.
Yeah. They'll do.
All right, I close the public hearing. All in favor?
We need a
We didn't
motion.
motion.
I'm sorry.
I
Motion.
I move,
Usually you're 3 steps ahead of me.
well, I move that we accept the $9,100, or the Fund 9100 from Duke Energy for $1,000.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we're running a little bit ahead. Does anyone need a break?
I
I'm
do.
good.
I need to go get my coffee. Can I do
You
that?
can go get your coffee.
Take my purse.
We could do
Okay.
budget updates and that type of stuff too.
Yeah.
See, on TV the other day, during the day, I was watching, he had the 25 largest CEOs in the world in his office, the president did. And they all got up and pledged how much new investment in the United States they were going to make in the next 4 years.
4 years?
In the next 4 years.
Sure.
And it was like $8 trillion.
Like an hour later.
IBM got up there and said, 500.
What'd you do to your finger?
Oh,
And I mean.
I'm about
and
to be able to
so-
take this off.
And then he just
I
got
was
back from
catching a
Saudi Arabia.
football like
They
I'm an
pledged
NFL
$1 trillion
player, yeah, and,
Okay.
Forgot
jammed it.
in the United States.
but
And it's like,
almost
so
better.
all of that means something. You know
I
what
see
mean?
Linda
General
is
Motors
here.
pledged,
Yes.
everybody pledged. You know what I mean?
Okay, she
Toyota
said
and all of
we
them
had a question
pledged.
for-
So that means
I'm still
something. It
thinking.
means they're gonna bring all these stuff that they're
Myself,
building
at
in
Go
for
for like
places,
half.
China and all that. They're gonna bring all that
those two
here.
transitional.
and do
housing.
it.
If they're gonna build,
Oh,
it
yeah.
will take
And
years
then
and years and years
do
before that ever
Right,
hits the.
but there's only a few sites in the country.
Oh,
And we're on the list.
Just thought.
think that,
Yes.
that,
We're in the top 10 probably in the country.
that location that we've been squabbling
I
about
haven't heard.
Yes.
is,
To
actually
see what
zoned
they
for
can do.
manufacturing is a
Yeah, so
possibility.
why don't we get a good project that everybody can be
What do you
proud
think?
of? Especially if we're
I'm
gonna have
open
to
to
start
whatever,
producing our own
you know, I want-
pharmaceuticals and our own
It's
pharmaceutical
a decision I
equipment,
want to be made.
you know,
without
things like
much
that.
money.
If we have to bring that from China back over here,
I think there's certain things that are
It'd be interesting to
necessity
see
for the
I'm not
public.
talking about
kind of
batteries and
support
stuff like
No.
that. I'm talking about
would
Needs to be
things
made
that
here,
other
those,
need to
those
be made.
chips need to be made here.
for world
mean,
security,
the-
for our security
Most of
and
our
for our
medicines
health.
Lighting, we could do the whole
Stay
house.
I
here.
think, I'm not sure, but I think if you take a Tylenol, you're taking
I would be
something,
against that.
in that Tylenol, that drug come from China.
It'd be nice
And I,
to
and I don't understand why we're
get
not,
off their butts and do
I
it.
wonder, I don't want
Yeah.
that to happen.
Yeah.
course,
And
they're
one
gonna
thing
have
that
to.
still
Threaten to
leaves them
stop.
raising money, you know.
Some of our
Medical
drugs,
Skin
and I
treatment.
think there's eight, I
Yeah,
think 80%
but
of our
they-
drugs don't even come
then-
from the United States.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, I
sure-
think there should be
I think we can
Or
move
the
forward.
compounds
Keely's here, Jim's
that
here.
they use.
Janice is.
some
You know,
restrictions on what
So there's
meds we
gonna,
allow to
there's
go
gonna be
outside the
a
door.
lot in the next 24 months. You watch.
Yeah,
challenge Greenfield.
And we don't want to give these properties away,
I know.
especially to people
They
that
don't
don't have
even
any
seem to
concern
have
about
money for
us.
Well,
the
and
senior
you're
citizens.
running like offering
Really
like 40 or
bothers
50
me.
jobs.
I mean,
And
there's
there's no
some,
guarantee that those.
And those people aren't gonna live here,
They're
they're gonna live in
gonna live
Carmel.
in- Yes, no problem.
They're gonna live in Carmel.
they don't have any
If they
money.
live in- if they live here.
budget for that. and that's
Okay,
at one
Keely, you're
time.
up.
So what are they gonna do next year?
Pouring.
So we've talked a couple times about opioid funds, and the biggest thing today was I thought Scott Binky was gonna be here because, the question came up at the joint meeting, have we defined that all these requests are allowable uses? So I had called Scott and tasked him with, you know, next time this comes up, will you be ready to, I want you to have already looked at the national settlement document and ascertained that these are all eligible uses. So I thought he would be here today to share that. He told me last week that they are, but I really wanted to hear that from him directly. But I will say, at least on the housing piece, the state of Indiana has used a significant amount of their opioid funds, which are the same funds, to create recovery types of housing. So I thought for sure that type of request was eligible. Scott said they are, but I wish he was here to share that. And then I'll let you guys discuss it. I've mentioned it here before, but for good measure, I'll mention again that I am a volunteer currently of the Talitha Coombe House on the board and currently serving as board chair. So while I am completely eligible to vote on matters for that because I have no financial or personal benefit out of that whatsoever, I'm strictly a volunteer. But to be sure that it doesn't get any undue support because I have volunteer experience there, I will abstain from voting on anything to do with the Talitha Coombe House, just to be extra fair. So we heard before from the church, the Landing, and Talitha Coombe House. We have, I don't have the number right in front of me, it's just a little over 800,000 between restricted and non-restricted opioid funds that are up for discussion. So does anybody have any thoughts?
Well, you know, I thought about maybe we could split it with those three entities.
I have a question.
Separately.
Does any other entities in the county get opioid funds but us?
Does any-
Yes.
Oh, yes,
Does
the
City Green
cities,
Fund?
yes, the cities and towns all get it. If you were a town under a certain size, your portion went to the county. So like Spring Lake would not have gotten their check. It just would have
Right,
been
but
lumped into
Greenfield would have
ours.
got a check.
Yes, yes. I asked them years ago, a couple years ago, when it initially came about. And I think they, at the time at least, I was told by one person that they intended to use it all internally.
Go ahead, no, you go ahead.
That was one of my questions.
So I've put a lot of time into this, and I've really thought about it. Not to take away from the Landing, TK. Here are my thoughts. There is more than just Greenfield, and I want to think about our county as a whole and not just Greenfield. I don't think at this point I'm in favor of just outright buying housing for TK. It seems very, I don't want to take away the progress that those women have made and the things that TK does or the landing, but I want to touch more people with this money throughout the entire county. So I've talked to some police departments, talked to some fire departments. They currently have to pay, so we have 880, I believe. So they have to pay for their doses that they get to treat overdoses. So we have, in the county, total, we have 9 fire departments, 7 police departments, 26 schools, a 911 center, 4 courtrooms. That's 47 locations. And I think if we gave $10,000 to each of those, they currently have to buy it themselves. It's $65 a dose, and that would give them the access to 153 doses. That would take $470,000. It's not preventative, but not every program that uses these funds is going to be preventative, because we're seeing it more in schools, we're seeing it in churches, where they're coming across it more in the public, and I would like to see some of that money go throughout the whole county and help the counties.
Well, I think one thing we discussed before was that we didn't want to use this money to fold it into just the existing budget of, we were talking about the county at the time, but we said it's a one-time shot in the arm, and that we wanted to do something transformational that was sustainable and could live on beyond a one-time funding. So, and we talked about a couple months ago, we all agreed here that by investing in capital for someone that they could sustain, that made sense. So if the sentiment has changed on that, I'm just talking about what's already been discussed in these meetings when it comes to those funds.
With SB1, I feel like I've changed, and I've heard from people in the public that I'd be more apt to support things we've already got going on, like in the jail, type of treatment, what she's mentioned. Because we have more of a tax constriction coming in the future.
Right.
And that's a concern for me now.
Yeah.
Something that was brought to me was concern about the ARPA money will run out at the end of '26. And we will have those jail navigators that have been paid through ARPA, that this money may be best to hold on to and see if we're going to need it after '26, when everything's supposed to really, the dust settle and budgets will be a lot more lean, that we may have to absorb those navigators somewhere.
And I know that Sheriff Burkhart and I had talked, and he had discussed, and it's not on here, but I have an email. He had discussed asking for $52,000 of opioid money to send a group of people to a training. I think that's right, Bobby, I don't know.
Yeah, a large department of educational for.
Yes, I think that's what it was.
Program, then we just educate them on the ability to recognize.
Well, I still like the idea of trying to do something transformational, because we're going to have to, all the budgetary, ongoing budgetary expenses, we're going to have to do something about that. But it's not a one-time type of thing. This is one-time money. And I guess I'd rather see us do something that's get something new going. And the transitional housing parts that we're talking about, I think do benefit the whole county, because it's not just Greenfield. The people involved are coming from the whole county. So I guess I'd rather see us do something of a transformational standpoint.
And Jim, I guess my thing with that is, they're residents of the county now, because they're, for example, at TK, they're residents of the county now.
Right.
Maybe they're working in the county now. Are they going to stay members of the county? And were they members of the county before they moved in there? So I don't feel, there is one for females. Do I think we could assist with it? Yes. Am I willing to fund it 100%? No. For, the sheriff came, and I cannot remember the group that came, for the church for a men's transitional housing. That's transformational because we don't have one. That's something I could get behind, assisting to help get them started. But then again, the idea isn't for people to stay in them forever. It's get to that point where they're on their feet, they're stable, they have their community, and then do they decide to stay in Hancock County, or do they decide to move once they've transitioned from transitional housing?
Yeah.
I'd like to make one more point. We got ARPA. We got over $15 million of ARPA money a couple years ago, and then we got this unexpected opioid money. We have not used local taxpayer dollars to do these types of things. And of over 15 million ARPA dollars, the church did not apply, but the Landing and Talitha asked for funding, and they got zero. And so we've given away, between opioid and ARPA, you're talking about almost $20 million, much of which we said was to help people suffering from addiction. But we come up here and turn down these projects when we have the one-time non-local taxpayer dollar opportunities to fund them. And as far as SB 1 and our budget, I've been here for 4 years, and every year we have well more than twice in the general fund what we say we intend to. So to say we don't have adequate funds to support these when we get these federal shots in the arm is just financially not true at all. So regardless of which project we're talking about from the funding standpoint, to sit here and say we need to hoard our cash to do our own things that we committed to before this money is just not financially so.
Well, and I had a question, and Scott would have to answer it, but can we use it for, like, the jail, for the navigators and so forth? Because really, in reality, if we don't use it for that, and not all of it, of course, just some, but if we don't use it for that, then taxpayers will have to pay for that, when maybe that could have paid for it for a while.
Taxpayers will end up paying for that regardless, because this money doesn't last forever, so it doesn't cover it forever. You will be, taxpayers will pay for that.
That's my point, is because if we don't fund some of the things that we do, and I think the jail is a really good program, if we don't fund that with maybe some of this money, then we'll have to do it with taxpayers' money.
But that's what we agreed to when we hired them, was that when ARPA ran out, we would do it with local taxpayers' money. That has always been what we said was going to happen.
And that was really part of the excess, I mean,
Well, I
we
think
have
too,
money
if we're
to
going
do
to put
that
this
going
amount of money,
forward.
$808,000 out there for grabs for a project that is deserving, but did not have to go through any kind of vetting process with other, I don't even know how to put this. I think if we're going to make that money available, then we need to push out some kind of notification to the other parts of the county that that's what we're thinking about doing. Do you have any wish list kind of things on your list of things that you'd like to see happen in your community that you can't afford? And I agree with everything comes into Greenfield, these houses and these projects. I think we need to broaden our scope a little bit and look out to this rest of the county and see if there's any needs out there which we've not addressed. And I don't know that they know this money was even available until we started talking about the Men's Transition Center and Talitha Coombs. So that's my thoughts on taking a step back and let the county
Well, the judicial system is in Hancock, is in Greenfield. That's why the recovery systems and everything have been built around the judicial system. You know, that's why that's here. The jail is there. Now, if you want to set up a recovery house in McCordsville and you have the jail there, that's probably not any more efficient. You know, just because your location is here doesn't mean any of those people came from Greenfield that are in those recovery houses. And I don't think we've ever filtered somebody that needed treatment by where they lived. Because I even think a lot of the stuff we handle in the courthouse, those people don't even live in the county. But you can't, and I'm not saying that that's good or bad, but you can't filter them. You know, they get arrested, they're here, whether they lived in Columbus and go back to Columbus, you know, that's just the nature of the beast. I don't really agree with like giving $10,000 to the schools to buy Narcan, $65 Narcan things. They don't last forever, for one thing, and I'd like to know how many times the schools have Narcan somebody this year. Is it once? Have they ever Narcaned anybody in the schools? So, I mean, yeah, it's a noble thing, but you know, we need to before we would say, okay, here's $10,000 for Narcan. We need to find out if there's actually a need for that in some of those locations. If some of the fire departments or the police departments are having trouble funding their Narcan stuff, that might be a little different story. But we also know that it's available free in some locations. But I don't think we should give everything to one scenario. But if you open it up to everybody, I think on the questionnaire should be, did you receive ARPA funds? Because this is a chance to help some that we turned down before.
Right.
That do qualify.
Yeah, Agape got hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy land off the community foundation and turn around to sell that land and march that money to Cicero. So while these entities made requests and were denied, we've got other entities that got that money and are marching it right out of the county.
Well, I think we can see that we need to give a great deal of thought to this because it's a great deal of money. And I think Mary's point was good, that we need to let people know it's available. And there may be a project that we all would really like that we don't even know about. So, and they don't know about us.
I like that too. If we want to create a process and make sure that, you know, anyone who has something to submit gets a chance, I'm totally in favor of that. I don't like the idea, whether it's internally here at the county or otherwise, accepting requests to just fund operations of what you're already trying to do. Because we've talked about, we did it with ARPA too. We want this to be transformational. We want it to be something that wouldn't happen otherwise, that an entity can sustain on their own afterwards.
And this would be a logical extension of the current recovery programs that we have started. The next blank area, I understand from all of the people working in it, is we need transition. We need to we put the people through recovery programs, mainly at the jail, but other places too. But you can't just turn those people out on the street. They need transition, and we don't have that element in our total recovery program. So I was just thinking this might be an opportunity, a one-time opportunity to start the transitional part of the total recovery program.
We are kind of fortunate, though, that there is like the church that's willing to step up and maybe sustain a program. You know what I mean?
Right.
Now maybe we can't fund their whole request, but to me,
To get a start.
To me, it's fortunate somebody's willing to do that because we don't have that ability ourselves to start up a program to. But
there may be a church in McCordsville wants to do it. I guess we don't know that.
we don't
there's
know
one in
that.
Greenfield.
Yeah. But in Talitha Coombe, you know, the county pulled funds away from it a few years ago, and Jim and I were the two big pushers to get the building, to get the assets to where it was, and I still think that that's been very successful. And I understand the need to expand it. So I mean, I don't want to just shut those people out when they did get shut out of the ARPA. Because I personally think we spent too much money on ARPA on, big mental health initiatives.
You could have made with ARPA, if the upfront intensive piece that Talitha does as a level 3, where you've got staff and you're a 24-hour operation. I mean, it takes 12 volunteers raising $250,000 a year every year to make that possible. Otherwise, no one would be able to afford to go there. And so to make that resource available, it's dependent on volunteers always being there, willing to break their backs, raising that money recurrently. If something would have been done, and I didn't foresee it then either, but like what the church is trying to do as well, if what you really need is the second step that Jim said is missing, where people can afford to pay rent, right? They still need subsidized in some way because they're working at Speedway full-time for $20 an hour, but they can't live at Greenfield Crossing on it without being codependent on another income earner. So by having that piece where people pay rent but below market, but that rent funds the services being provided on the more intensive front end, you can make those models sustainable. But something like what TK does now is only sustainable if you always have volunteers raising $250,000 a year, every single year, forever. And I think all of these models are going to need the second step where you can charge more for a lesser service to offset the cost of the intensive upfront. So just something to think about as we're going to put out something on proposals and consider proposals. When it comes to those types of things, it makes sustainability for the services in general because it's income producing.
And I think, isn't that true? Both the proposals we have from Talitha Coombe and the church is what they lack is the upfront investment. But if they had the upfront investment and didn't have a mortgage payment to make, then that operation would be sustainable. They wouldn't be coming back. They wouldn't have to raise money or
Because if
ask
you
for
go
more
get a
money.
mortgage on
Kinda,
$400,000 at 8%, if you can even prove on paper, if you're even eligible for that, right? If you could even show you could cash flow that payment prior to having the building, now you have to charge the people regular rent to pay the mortgage payment.
Well, I don't know I am on at one bank board, and I don't even know if the bank board I'm on would approve a mortgage because there's no sustainable income.
Exactly.
It's like a church. It's very hard to approve money for a church or a center like that because there's no product that is guaranteed that's going to generate income.
So you can afford, because they also don't pay property taxes as a nonprofit, right? So if you can get a building without a mortgage and they're not subject to property taxes, you're talking about insurance and utilities. And so at insurance and utilities, I mean, you can only be out $400, $500, $600 a month to have 4 or 5 units. And if you have 4 or 5 people paying $900 a month, then that can cash flow providing them services.
Well, it sounds like to me that we need to probably have more discussion before we can say for sure what we think the best thing is. I'd like to hear from Greg too, because I believe he's the one that mentioned to me that we need to keep an eye on and a tight rein on this opioid money until we see in 27 where the chips ended up falling with all the cuts that the federal government made with grants, all the state funding that may have came to us that is not going to be coming to us, the fact that those navigators' salaries will be pushed somewhere at some point. So it's just a lot of things to think about.
And I like Greg, and after 20 years, not a municipal financial advisor, but all I've ever done is financial advice. And I like Greg. I like his conservatism, right? He has kept us not overspending, but we've been getting over $5 million of interest a year that we hadn't budgeted for. Our target cash balances are double what we've said for years they needed to be. So on these one-time things that we don't even have to financially sustain, to elude, well, we better hoard that money just in case. As a financial advisor professionally, I'm trying to help people hoard money for the future. These are taxpayer dollars other than opioid and ARPA money. The money we have here is local taxpayer dollars, and I don't believe it's to be hoarded. We should only be taking what we need. And things have come out better than expected on property tax, income tax, and interest. So I am not in that boat that we are, should be on the fear train over these tax credits.
We're not indigent.
Yeah, no.
Well, let me say something, and this is from an auditor's perspective. I know that
Okay.
colors what I think. But, I've heard a lot of complaints about the general fund, and maybe we do need to spend some of that, but I think we need to kind of wait and see what's going to happen. And my view has always been that we kept our general fund a little bit higher in case a hard time comes along. Because when I came in to be auditor, it was, when we rolled over at the beginning of the year, I'm sure you've had it, we had $500,000. And we don't ever want to get in that position again. And we could be in a tough position in the next couple of years.
Froze, if, no hiring, and if someone left in your office, you couldn't replace them.
Right.
So it was
But
a tight
including
time.
rainy day, we have 300% in just between general fund and rainy day, we have 300% of what we say we need to keep around to have an inspection. So I'm not criticizing that we've done that. There's been incomes we didn't anticipate, but the notion of using ARPA or opioid money to offset those planned expenses, I just couldn't get on board with.
Well, I'm not against spending the money, okay? Right now, we have 3, maybe 4 different ideas on it that's all we know about, but I'm secure with those 4. But if we then maybe find out if there is any other priorities that need to be met before we try to come up with some type of solution for some of those, that's probably what we ought to do first, is make sure there's not more priorities out there.
Could we separately think about, there was a third request for supporting the landing that is being evicted from downtown Greenfield. And they were talking about buying a house to relocate on the north side of Greenfield for $150,000. Would we maybe consider helping them separately from the opioid money, maybe to the tune of half of that, like a challenge grant to challenge Greenfield, maybe to step in and help and do that from food and beverage, not from the opioid money, but from food and beverage.
I was going to say, after listening to everybody's conversation up here, that, Greenfield would have to step in, because almost all those people are probably Greenfield landing, because that's, I mean, we can ask them, but I doubt they get too many from New Pal.
They're starting to work at Fortville,
Yeah, they're
actually.
expanding into
Okay, so they're
Fortville.
going to have a
But-
center up there or something.
But that one is time sensitive. Some of these other projects aren't time sensitive. That one has
You're right, the
an
others are
immediate
hypothetical.
deadline. And I believe Greenfield should
And if they have a place in
should
Fortville.
Yeah.
pay half of it too, you know what I mean? Especially if they've got opioid dollars or if they have other dollars. It's not that huge of a request that they couldn't
Right.
meet us halfway.
I wouldn't hinge, I'm supportive of all that, and I wouldn't hinge whether or not we give what we say we're gonna give on, depending on what Greenfield does or doesn't agree to do. I mean, it still leaves them way short, needing to raise a lot of money, no matter where they go get it from. If Greenfield turns them down, maybe they do go talk to the north side and talk about doubling down in Fortville, McCordsville instead, who knows? But I would be definitely agreeable to that.
I thought it was 200,000. I didn't think it was 150. Because I had in my mind, that it was 100,000.
landing, you
for half
mean?
of-
Linda's
Yes.
I
here.
thought they
She
were
can-
asking
here if you wanna
250.
Come on up, Linda. Oh, was it
For
200?
the landing, was it? It was,
For
okay.
the 200, because the building is
You got to renovate some of it on top of it. Okay,
Okay,
right.
okay.
And
So I'll change it to 100 then.
okay,
And the 150 was, he was gonna hold,
Oh,
but,
oh, okay.
so whatever you decide on that, however you want us to use it, we'll use it however. And I, like I said, I would go to the city and ask for that, opioid.
well, I think if we give her the tools to say, okay, we'll do 100,000, then if she goes to the city, that gives her some collateral. Hey, I've already raised half the money from the county, you know what I mean? Rather than,
Shame them into it.
yeah, rather than them having to take the first lead, I think.
That doesn't work
let's
very
take the
good
first
unless
lead.
No,
you
it
didn't
doesn't.
notice.
Can
And
you
I-
talk to Jeff?
I
about
don't
that?
have a problem with taking it out of food and
Better
beverage.
if I didn't.
Yeah.
Because a lot of that money is generated right here too, you know what I mean?
To be clear, I would vote on that. I have no involvement whatsoever with the
Right.
landing, never.
And I mean, just to keep this moving along, because that would take one of our discussions on the opioid off the table and take the time-sensitive one off. I would make the motion that we grant them $100,000 out of the food and beverage, the landing for their project.
If Greenfield
Well,
matches it.
yeah, they might be able to raise the other with other people too, though.
Yeah,
You
I
know what I
wouldn't
mean?
make it
'Cause
just the
they have
city.
the other facility, they have
But, I mean,
factories and
But
stuff
I
like that.
don't just
they
want to
can
give out
also-
$100,000 and say.
there's not match.
If it takes
Right, if the
3 years to
project,
build
if the
money.
project dies,
Make
then,
Greenfield engaged.
Yeah, let's not tie their hands. They ought to be free.
Yeah.
no,
Get the building, I could use the money back.
yeah. No, my motion is to, for that project, not for, don't take the landing money and do something else with it. Okay, but,
I'm not like that.
right,
Right, so can you
my
clean up the
motion.
motion? Clean up the motion.
Okay, motion is to take out of food and beverage $100,000 to give to the landing for the relocation of the new building.
Second.
Okay, I'm going to call for the vote. Believe Mary,
Call roll.
call roll.
Okay, I'll call roll. Councilmember Shelby,
Yes.
Councilmember Buttram,
Yes.
Councilmember Louder,
No, and that's only because I still feel like we need more discussion before we vote, but no if I have to vote right now.
Councilmember No,
I'm no, and for the exact same reasons as Robin.
okay. Councilmember Fisk,
Yes.
Councilmember Woolridge,
Well, I tend to stay, I don't vote yes unless I'm absolutely positive. I'll probably vote yes in the future, but right now I'll say no because I'm not decided yet.
Councilmember Settergren.
No. So the motion did not pass at a 4-3 vote, 4-3. But it's not over. We just
No.
need to.
Actually, it's 2-5. There was
Yeah.
2 yeses.
There were
There were
just
three
Three
yeses.
yes.
There were
there was
3?
three.
Buttram,
Yeah, three.
Jim
Fisk,
and,
and
Kent.
yeah.
Yep,
Oh, sorry.
yep.
So noting that that is not an end to the discussion, let's just see that we need a little more information. Or how.
Maybe
What
you, maybe
information
you
on the
could,
landing do you want?
maybe you could go to Greenfield and by our next meeting and ask them if they would agree to the money. And then if you could bring that back, maybe it'd convince somebody that the project will go.
Yeah, so what should I need?
Well, you can't do that because it was a negative vote.
Well, I'm sure next month we could come up with another motion that's not the same.
I think what we're
That's hard to
what
sell.
the consensus is that for us to allocate the $100,000, which is not
couldn't
all you
sell that.
need, what's the plan to get the other half of it so that we know that the $100,000 is going to get used and move forward? Because if we don't have, or you don't have a commitment to the other side of this, then I would assume the 100,000 is not going to take you where you need to go.
Well, it does, because she's got the ability to borrow, to buy it, rent to own with any margin that they can fundraise.
Like the landing is a
They
thing of the
could put the rest into a payment that's with the seller.
Whatever you guys need, but we've been going for 12 years. I've never really come before you and asked for anything, from the county, as, they did give opiate money to us because we pick up a lot of students. But other than that, but I have fundraised my whole life on that building over there. This is a board member. And we have fundraised and did all of that stuff to support and fund every free thing we do over there.
So you say you bought a bus to pick up students. Are they just Greenfield Central students? Go to Eastern.
Eastern Hancock up. I pick some up off of, on going towards into New Pal, but not at the school, but in the location of everything. But the majority of our kids walk too.
Yeah.
So, but we can't go out to Fortville and pick up, it's too far. But we're in the conversation of growing to Fortville. But I don't know what you're asking is like, do you just want me only to supply services only to Greenfield students or adults? Is that what you're saying?
They want you to not only supply services to Greenfield.
We don't.
Yeah.
We're in the surrounding counties.
Yeah.
We get kids from, honestly, everywhere. We do.
Well,
Yeah, so what are?
you're
what are we
gonna have to
asking
figure, I guess we're going to figure out what more discussion has to be made, because the council, the people that voted no, then don't support the landing, because there's not enough information. So they need to get with you, I guess, and find out what information they need if they're
That's not
gonna
true.
support.
Not saying, not saying we don't support the landing. Please don't say it that way.
Well, you just killed it. They can't move to the next project if they don't have any money.
They
You
can't
just-
move with
does.
$100,000
They can't,
either.
you
It's-
just killed it.
They can't move with
It's
$100,000
us
either.
providing
They can
all
move
the
with
money for a new building.
$100,000.
Yeah.
That's not true.
They can move with $100,000.
$100,000.
The Doug Duggar said he would carry the note,
Yes, he would like.
meaning
them-
they don't have to pay the building off, but they have to have money to renovate the building, stuff like that. But
So is
that's,
$100,000 for renovation fees, or is it for purchasing fees?
both.
That's where I want to know is what's the money for? I'm not asking for a line item, and I'm not supporting the landing. I mean, I just want to know.
I think what we'd like to see is just maybe a written summary of what your expectations are for the total amount you need and what you're going to do along the way to get there. And with our contribution of $100,000 will take you up to this point. This caught us totally off guard. We weren't even discussing this at all.
I felt like I was rushed.
Yeah, we're a little rushed here.
Okay, so when do you want the landing to come back? We're not even talking about opioid money right now. We're talking about food and beverage.
As soon as they're ready.
So do we have the money in food and beverage too? Because we've spent a lot of money on food and beverage.
Yeah.
We've got,
We have the balance. I don't know if we have the appropriation, but there's a 1.3 million still in
The
there.
money's.
The
The
appropriation.
money's there. Do,
I would
The
say if they
appropriation?
can get on Jim's
The-
agenda for
well,
the
the
next
appropriation-
meeting or the meeting.
Pardon me?
so get on the budget meeting agenda.
It's actually in your packet
They can
too.
come
the
back
very
with
last
more of
thing in
a-
auditor.
Projections.
The paperwork from Linda at the first meeting, because I was there representing the church, and I know that she handed you guys a document that spelled out information. So I'm speaking on her behalf. Do you guys already have the information? Do you still, or do you need a copy?
Well, if it was handed out last meeting,
No,
we,
it's handed out 2 meetings.
okay, then we would probably still have it. We
Maybe
just
Miss
weren't
Linda's
prepared for the
information
conversation
isn't
to
listed.
have it
There's
in
a
front
sheet.
of us today.
Okay, we sprung it on you, so we'll do it in the budget meeting. I'll bring her back.
The first Wednesday of June, Jim says you will be on the agenda for the landing.
so you said that since we're talking
What your,
about food and beverage.
what your scope of the project is, I mean, are you renting a house, buying a house? This is the amount of money we need, and this is the commitments that we have to put towards that.
Which way we-
And if
Yeah, come
100,000 of us
Hold on, it's
We'll
not
talk
on
come from
about
us.
It's on the second page of the report.
Come repeat what you told us at the joint meeting.
At the earlier meeting, when I passed out that PowerPoint, money was to remodel because Doug Duggar came to the meeting and said he was president, that he was gonna hold the note so we could get in. $100,000 would at least tear down the buildings inside and put our floor in and start the kitchen. I have a contractor we've been working with that has donated all of his time. We have a architect that has basically donated. I wrote a grant from the Hancock County Foundation. They just awarded $10,000 to put our privacy fence up and to pay the $3,700 for our contractor. But whatever you need to show, I can break that down. We did have a little bit of that in the paperwork, but I can send it all to you, and so you can see what that looks like.
I think, Linda, that's what we want. I read all the information. I read everything. But the big question is how far will that 100,000 take you? That would be helpful.
Yeah, it's the difference between getting it and not getting it. And then whatever is left, the seller will let them make payments for a very long time.
I'm not worried about the building. I'm worried about being able to get in there and start the program in September. But I also know, whatever. I mean, if it's time for the landing not to be in Greenfield and do the supports that we need, I'm cool with that. Talk to my pastor about it. Maybe it's time. It's an ending for us. Because I don't have that kind of money to do it personally, and I've given a lot of my time and money to it. But I cannot continue to serve the people of the county like that without the help. I just can't. And you want Narcan? I have it all day long, free over there. And we do free trainings over there. They can get in for Overdose Lifeline. You can get the trainings for overdose. And anybody can come over there, and I have right now 200 kits. But if you need more, I can get more. But I don't know what else to do. I just came, like, oh my God, what are we gonna do? Do we want it? You guys have to decide, do you really want that kind of a program here?
I guess we're just wanting to be sure that you can get the rest of it, because you're gonna have to renovate it, and we just wanna make sure it's sustainable, because you'll be able to get it where you need it to be.
This money will renovate it. I don't understand what's hard to understand.
And I asked Brent that, and Bob Krieger, Dr. Bob, I asked Bob, we just had a board meeting, what are we gonna do if the county says no with trying to get the renovation going? And we'll just have to go to the next step, or maybe I am gonna go to Fort Mill, but I'm still in the county. Fort Mill's just like, come to us, met with the trustee.
Well, this wasn't even on our agenda for a topic today.
It was the opioid money.
Well, not the landing, though.
It was. They
I
were all
thought-
three.
Okay, then let me correct myself, then yes, they were. But as of right now, our vote is 4-3 against. And what we'd like to do is see you come back at our next meeting with just your projections on how much funding we need to make this happen. And so far, this is the money that we have ourselves or committed from whomever, and that will show our 100,000. And it'll give us just a little bit of something to show what we're investing in. Yeah, that's all we need. So we can go on to now our 9:45 Budget Committee report.
I just said if it would help then to have like the contractor break down what the $100,000 would do to get the landing, the ability to move into the facility.
Just an overview would probably be enough.
Yeah, that would be enough, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
We reviewed the fund balances, and they were good. Second, we got into the 2026 budget issues. And Mary, can you read the resolution that we passed? You don't have it? Okay.
For last week?
Pardon me?
For last week?
For the increase in salaries for 2026?
Yes, I can read that.
Just so we've got the right wording. I have
And I
something
actually
written
wanted
down and I heard
clarification on
it was
that as
different,
well.
so. What I had, we were going to have a 3% increase in all full-time employees and a 3% plus 1,500 for all full-time elected officials. We exempted the council, commissioners, and I had the coroner from the 1,500, and we would only get the 3%. Is that what you have as a motion?
Well, I listened to the minutes on Monday, or listened to the whole meeting, and you kind of went back and forth, but then when you repeated at the very end and said, this is what we're going to do, the coroner was not included in your final decision.
Okay.
So I just need to know what you do want
So
to do.
you differentiated between full-time elected officials and non-full-time elected officials, right?
Yeah.
And the coroner is not a full-time elected official.
Right.
Is that true?
Right.
Okay, so, and the only question I had, what you just repeated, the non-full-time elected officials would get a one-time $1,500 stipend, not the 3%.
If they're elected, yes. That was the way I
And
understood it too.
the
Was it?
full-time elected officials would get both.
Yes. Yes.
That's how I understand it. Is that
Okay.
how it says?
No.
No, but I can definitely add that. What I have so far is 3% raise to the personal services category of the budgets to be dispersed among employees as determined by that elected official / department head. An additional $1,500 will be added after the 3% increase for elected officials. This excludes the sheriff, prosecutor, council commissioner, and department heads. I thought I would just add that in there. And I can add the coroner to that as well, that he be excluded.
I think that's the way we intended it,
What's all department heads getting, 15?
just 1,500.
Okay with everybody? Is that right?
I think the only thing I had heard from the public about was people were upset that we were doing 1,500 for ourselves.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
I
yeah,
just-
they're
And
always-
I think that should be I'm fine with the commissioners if they make the decision on what we get for a raise, that's fine with me.
Was that the commissioner's recommendation?
I don't think yet. They do our budget, we're in their budget.
Yeah.
So we'll let them just decide what our.
Well, I would like to recognize that we spend a lot of time doing what we do, and we're on a lot of committees, and we work a lot of hours besides just sitting here in this meeting. And I feel like that we should be treated equally to the other elected officials, being the
And if you don't do
commissioners.
it piecemeal, after 4 or 5 years, you say, oh darn, now we got to do a big thing. And
Yeah,
No.
if you.
The discrepancy,
You
so-
do we did the numbers when I first got on about our county versus the state. And we do, because we only get a portion of what the commissioners get for being a commissioner. You know what I mean? There's double or more than double ours. And so that is a rarity in the state. I think we were in the bottom 16 counties out of 92. So if and I'm a proponent of keeping as much to the, even though for me personally, it doesn't mean that much, but you want quality people to maintain in these positions, it shouldn't be a volunteer position, and you want people that have children in the system, you want people that are vibrant, doing this, you still got to give them compensation for what they do. Because it costs as much to run an election as you get paid sometime in a year.
Right.
If you run a county race, like me, it's almost $9,000 now to do one mailer in the county. And when you make, 10 or 11 the whole year, you spend a whole year worth just to try to get elected. There's no guarantees.
You have any good questions, Mary? Is everything clear?
One other thing I did want to clarify, because I read something online. The recorder is included in as a full-time elected official, correct?
Yeah.
There was something about the recorder was not to get a raise.
That's because we didn't mention them specifically, but when we
Okay.
said all elected officials,
Okay,
that,
that's what I thought. I
Definitely
thought it included the recorder. I
Oh,
just wanted to verify.
yes.
Elected officials.
Okay, Mary, will you repeat that now again?
Yes,
Please.
yes, this will be the new wording.
But right now, we don't.
3% increase to the personal services category of the budget to be dispersed among employees as determined by that elected official / department head. An additional $1,500 will be added after the 3% increase for elected officials. This excludes coroner, sheriff, prosecutor, council commissioners, and department heads. But and then the commissioners can decide on the
So-
extra
So we get
1,500.
3%, not the 1,500? Is that how you read that?
The 15.
It's
Yes,
the 1,500
yes, it says that
stipend.
council and commissioners will be excluded from the extra 1,500.
No.
Right.
But you want to go ahead
They're
and,
excluded from the
Excluded from the
3%.
3%.
From the 3%.
Yeah, we're excluded from the 3%.
you're excluded from the 3%? Oh,
Because we're elected.
I did
Okay.
ask for clarity on that during that
That's what I wrote
discussion,
down.
and they said councilmen and commissioners would not get 3%.
Right.
okay,
would
but
get
the
the
other
elected
elected
official
officials
amount.
would. Okay.
With the
Because I was
exclusion
confused
of
in the
the,
meeting.
Yeah.
we
I
said the
thought that.
prosecutor and the,
They're set by, everybody's set by state.
They're set by state.
Yeah, judges,
whoever
they're all
else
set
she,
by state.
yeah, whoever else she said.
Okay.
And there was a
Okay.
stipulation on that, I believe, that first they did the 3% calculation and then the 1,500 on top of that, not the 1,500, then the 3%.
Correct.
Yes, I did put the
I didn't
1,500
know
will
if
be
we-
added after the 3%.
Okay, would you now repeat that again? Here we go.
Oh, come on. Okay. We'll try this for a third time. Okay, 3% increase to the personal services category of the budgets to be dispersed among employees as determined by that elected official department head. An additional $1,500 will be added after the 3% increase for full-time elected officials. So this excludes,
I think you
Sheriff.
should list those exclusions, just so there's no,
Let
I
her
think
talk.
so too.
Let her talk.
I think so too. So then it will go on and say, this excludes the sheriff, the prosecutor, the coroner, council commissioners, and department heads
Excluded from what?
from the 3%.
3%.
Or no, the 1,500.
Yeah, the 1,500. Yeah, the 1,500.
That's,
Yeah, I think we're still missing something.
yeah, we are. Okay, what we want, I think, is 3% for all elected, full-time elected people, plus 1,500.
No, that's not right. That's not right. It's not 3% to the full-time elected. 3% to the employees,
Right.
the staffing.
Well, we've already got the employees. So the full-time elected officials will get $1,500, right?
They will get the 3% also and an additional $1,500, which will also be the department heads. Elected and department heads will all get $1,500, with the exception of the full-time elected officials, which will get the additional 3%.
Not to include anyone whose salary is determined by state statute.
But she's got a list. I think it's better just to name them out, so
Okay.
she doesn't have to,
Yeah.
someone will come in and say, well, I work full-time, you just don't know.
Well, I thought all full-time elected officials would get the 3% and $1,500, except for the council and commissioners and coroner, which would not get
Sheriff.
the 3%. Not the,
That's how I
Yes.
understand.
Okay, okay.
Okay.
So the $1,500, you got, commissioners and council will only get the $1,500, correct?
Corner.
and coroner.
Okay. And coroner, okay. Okay, and then the 3% is going to be for everyone else.
And 1,500.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Well-
Everybody gets 3%.
Yeah, everybody gets 3%.
All the full-time elected officials get 3% and $1,500, except council, commissioners, and coroner, who only get 1,500.
Okay, I'm going to have to put that into
Yes,
some
put it
some
into
good
the-
wording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you'll have to
Okay.
throw something in
Okay.
there for the state.
It was easier when
Required
we
positions.
excluded the
And-
3%.
and Mary,
but,
if you
yeah,
could-
It's okay.
Include it when you talk about council and commissioners, put in there that we're excluded from the 3%. So people are for sure know we don't get that. If you
Okay.
would, please.
Yeah.
So today, should we table approval of that, what minutes were these? Because we talked about the joint meeting April 29th, which were minutes that were in here. Are we gonna table those today?
Or,
Could I finish up the budget?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, finish your budget.
The next issue we talked about all the legislative issues and kind of the bottom line there is Greg's going to come back at the next meeting with recommendations on what we probably are going to have to do with income taxes. There will be some going up. And then the 25 GO bond, I did send a list based on what we talked about to Scott to be included in the 25 GO bond. That was 2.2 million for the fairgrounds. That's 2 years of fairgrounds. 800,000 for radios through the 911 center. That's 2 years. And 1.8 million in sheriff's cars, which is 800,000 from this year, $1 million for next year.
How much was the car total? I forgot. I didn't get it written down. The car part, how much was that?
1.8 million.
1.8, okay.
And it looks like every 3 years, we're buying 15 cars. The rotation and 15 times, it's not quite 800,000, but it's close. What I don't, we do trade those cars in, so this is a gross. I'm not sure how we handle the net of that, but there's a net, there's a gross outgo when we buy them. So
Are they buying all their cars, or are they buying part and leasing part?
I think they still lease some, but mainly they're buying now.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the interest rate was better if we buy, according to FSG. Conversation, just a brief conversation with Bill Spalding, and he was talking about there suddenly being a lot of need for maintenance, and he mentioned the courthouse, and I'm not sure where else he was talking about, but I was kind of surprised that, like, we may need a bond for the next 3 years, every year, something. So you might tune your ears to the commissioner's need for buildings. And that was it.
Janice?
I'll be quick, and I won't cost you anything during this time period. On May the 1st, we were notified that we were awarded the Operation Roundup through the 9 Star Community Trust grant funds to further assist in clothing needs that we have in our client closet. So I'm on the agenda today to ask for a thumbs up for advertising so that we can move that money and complete the holes.
All right, thumbs up. We got it.
Thank you.
Okay, we've done actionable items. We want to go ahead, budget meeting update.
Got that.
We've already got that? Okay, that covered both parts?
Yep.
Okay, was there concern about the minutes, or can we go ahead and approve those?
I didn't see it in there, but I know the 1,500 for elected officials was discussed in a meeting. I'm trying to look up what meeting.
It was the budget
It was the
meeting
budget
last week.
week.
Okay,
And she hasn't done those yet, of course.
okay.
And those
'Cause
aren't
I
done yet.
swore,
No, it was last week.
I swore that it came up when Janine and Bill Spalding were both
Well, Janine was
here.
at the budget meeting.
Yeah.
They were both at the budget
They're
meeting.
both at the budget meeting.
Okay, that was what I was
Yeah.
trying to place.
They're
if
allowed
that
to
made
come
it
to the
April
budget
29th.
meeting.
They both came.
I just don't want that to not be in the minutes whenever it was discussed.
Right,
for,
that's
you
not
know.
these minutes, though.
Okay.
I know it all starts from.
I move we approve the minutes for April 9th, and April 29th, and the executive session and the joint meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Mary's auditor business?
Okay, there is a packet that I actually added this morning at the very end. So I have a couple of things. The first thing is we received an invoice from ESRI. It's for the second year of that GIS joint agreement. RDC paid the first year and we agreed to pay the second and third year from the lit economic development line. The invoice is for $58,500, and we do have a miscellaneous line in economic development that we could pay this bill from. I just need a motion to pay it.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, and then the second thing, senior services, we had only funded $200,000 for 2026. That money has been spent, and we need to reappropriate more money to pay their monthly fee so that we can get reimbursed 50% from the federal government.
Where's this come out of?
Food and beverage.
Do we have enough food and beverage?
We have 208,000 appropriated in the line, or we can advertise an additional.
Well, we'll need to advertise an additional if we're gonna do the landing.
Right, if that comes to fruition.
Yes,
I
that was a concern.
Right, but how much money is this going to take out of the current appropriation?
I was gonna say, there's only 208,000 available.
All of it.
Okay,
So if
so
we appropriated more money for senior
We need to appropriate another
services.
200,000. And that's a thumbs up.
Okay, how much do you want to go to senior services? Just 100? And then revisit it?
I mean, as of today,
So our total appropriation to senior services has typically been how much?
400?
Last year it was, we appropriated, 600,000, but I don't know that we're quite gonna need 600,000. But I don't know that 200,000 will get us through the rest of the year, because it's
Oh.
May and
I'm fine
we're
with
already
doing
out.
100,000 and keep revisiting it till we figure.
Greenfield is paying how much?
Greenfield has actually not paid us yet. There is a note on the bottom of the sheet that says, that Deborah wrote, and she said per Lori Elmore. They're still working on 150,000 of ARPA money from the city council. I think they're still trying to decide if there's any way that will work, because we can't use federal money to pay for a federal grant and get reimbursed with federal money.
They may pay it directly to senior citizens, which would mean then we don't pay that much, so it's
But
the
does that
same
mean it's
thing.
not reimbursed?
Yeah, that was my question. Does that?
Does that mean it doesn't get reimbursed? Because we've budgeted as if we're gonna get 50% reimbursed, so if they
Yeah.
give 200 directly and we don't get burst 100 we were planning on, we need to be cognizant of that.
It would be 150, so it'd be 75.
Something for someone to look into. And also, the fact that they're using ARPA money means they don't have this in their budget sustainably. And when we talk about unfairly investing in Greenfield, we know that over 3/4 of those rides are right here in Greenfield. So I'm with Kent about doing only what's needed to keep
Right.
that conversation going, because if the money movement means we're not getting our reimbursements we planned on, and they haven't budgeted to take care of anything long-term, we need to keep talking about that expenditure.
And 100,000 will buy us maybe 2 or 3 more months.
Oh, I think that will get us a little ways.
So we have a thumbs up to appropriate an additional $200,000
Out of food and
into food and beverage
Okay.
appropriation. And
Do you need a motion to?
No, just a thumbs up to advertise.
Well, what about the,
Hancock County Senior
what
Services.
about senior
Oh,
services?
are you wanting to just budget transfer right from the current balance that we
Yes,
have? Because we do have
yes.
208, okay.
Yeah, but we need a motion for that. It comes out of food. and
We
beverage.
would just need a budget transfer.
I'll make that motion that we take 100,000 out of the food and beverage to support the senior services.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion passes.
And do recognize that the reimbursement we're getting from the state, which is about half, goes into food and beverage.
Oh, it does, it goes back
We
in.
don't get.
Yes.
But we haven't gotten it yet.
The
Right. We
reimbursement
haven't
has
gotten
to
it
go
yet,
back.
but-
We have received some reimbursements
have?
this year.
Oh,
Okay, all right, super.
Has to go back in the fund. It
And
came
we
out
don't
of.
get a report on that, but it's going in.
Okay.
They're gonna have to
But
produce.
we don't get reimbursed. We wouldn't get reimbursed.
You know what, though, that program,
It's the only reimbursement,
But it's just so
the
expensive.
state.
150 for them and 100 for
father-in-law
us.
to doctor visits, because he's not capable. at work.
Okay, Mary, what is the resolution for declaration of official intent to reimburse expenditures?
That's an email I received from Lisa Lee, and I forwarded it to everyone yesterday afternoon. She has it dated for today. So I went ahead and amended the agenda and added it. I mean, if we don't do anything with it, I think we can just look at it. There is a copy in your packet to look over.
Well, I think we want to do it. This is a reimbursement, it's kind of a redo of a reimbursement that we've already done. But I forget why.
I think it encompasses a
Greg
large amount of money.
And bond counsel thought we ought to redo this. So it's just we've already done it once, but it wasn't applicable to what we're doing now for some reason. I'm not sure what. So it's really nothing new. This just says the money that we spend for the 4-H fairgrounds part, we're taking that money out of food and beverage now. When we pass the 2025 GO bond, we can reimburse therefore food and beverage for what we took out. In other words, the fairgrounds needed the money quicker than we could do the bond. So this is just to reimburse food and beverage once we get the bond.
Okay, gotcha.
You have a resolution number?
I do. This would be Resolution 2025-5-6.
Was that a motion, Jim?
Oh, that's the motion, yeah. I move that we pass Resolution 2025-5-6.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Mary, you had on this food and beverage budget sheet, okay, this indigo, and there's nothing else on that line that needs to be done?
No.
Okay.
No, but if it would for some reason, already
All
done.
right. Do you want to make any comments about this late minute handout to what you wanted us to do?
We have,
think only.
insurance has a meeting on this.
Okay.
I just wanted to give everybody a copy. It's not for this meeting, but Kelly sent it out and it had some color graphs in it. So I thought you guys might like a printout of it if you're on the benefit committee.
Well, it
Okay.
just seemed like to me.
Is this only signed by Mary? It just says presiding officer, the rest of
And
our
then I
names.
think there were lines underneath it.
There are lines,
actually had a
but
better year
none of our
last year.
names are like usual, so I didn't know.
I know that, I didn't type that up, so, but I would assume you would need to sign
I think
it.
we're all, I agree with Mary, I
just
think
sign
we're
it, I
all
guess.
supposed to sign it.
Other than that, everything else makes sense.
Does anyone have anything else?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourned.
Thank you.
Is there something still to sign?
Yeah, it's coming.
Thank you. Solid.